America's future, will be determined by your dreams and your visions. And nowhere is this more true than America's next frontier, the vast frontier of space. The space age is barely a quarter of a century old, but already we've pushed civilization forward with our advances in science and technology. Our work on the space shuttle gives us routine access to the landscape above us, dropping off payloads, performing experiments, and fixing satellites. And I believe we've only touched the edge of possibilities in space. It's time to quicken our pace and reach out to new opportunities.
For decades, that next frontier was a benign environment, a place of exploration, of innovation, and a strategic advantage for the few nations who could afford to access it. But as technology advanced, the domain became economically lucrative. Participation in space expanded, and national interest grew. Today, space is like oxygen to us. When it's available to meet our needs, we take it for granted and barely even notice it.
For a lot of people, space is out of sight, out of mind. But in reality, it underpins almost every aspect of daily life. Satellites are a crucial part of more than half of the 16 sectors of national infrastructure. A third of crops are grown using weather data. GPS navigation data keeps supply chains and logistics moving. And the timing signal that comes from GPS is what stamps digital transactions, which means digital commerce, e-finance. None of that works without satellites.
It literally drives the way we do life right now, and it's only going to get more and more important.
But if it's taken from us, we can do nothing else but desperately try to get it back. Space is vital to our nation's security and economic prosperity, and we must increase our ability to harness its power and our will and capabilities to defend it. The United States Space Force was created to do just that.
And to tame new frontiers.
Semper Supra. As our motto says, always above. Operating 24/7 to provide and protect capabilities that are critical to the joint force and the American way of life.
In just the last 5 years, the space domain has gotten incredibly congested. When the service stood up, there's about 25,000 objects in space. Now, daily, we track 46,000, and that number is growing all the time. That's almost double, and it's not slowing down.
But space is not just congested, it's also contested.
I think traditionally, it has been viewed as a collection of space activities. And with the stand-up of Space Force and the additional resources and the changing environment and global competition, we have seen that evolve to space becoming a warfighting domain itself.
Over the past 20 years, the Russians and the Chinese have heavily invested their resources to develop a broad portfolio of space weapons designed to negate the U.S. space advantage.
In 2007, China decided to essentially use a kinetic kill vehicle, also known as an anti-satellite weapon, and knock down one of their own weather satellites. The satellite was defunct at the time, but also we know that this is an opportunity for them to prove the capability that they can essentially target satellites in low Earth orbit. And in LEO, essentially low Earth orbit, that's where most of our satellites are operating, especially the ones that the everyday American and everyday user are actually depending on.
That event generated over 2,700 pieces of debris, much of which still remain on orbit today and will for decades to come.
So just like that, we went from benign, peaceful domain, space as a sanctuary, to contested, competitive domain, space as a warfighting domain.
We face a sophisticated array of threats across every orbital regime.
More and more we see China, Russia, eventually other countries, we see them put weapons in space to try and hold us at risk. And this includes satellites with robotic arms for dragging potential US assets out of missions, thus destroying our capability.
Of crucial concern, China has developed an on-orbit sensor shooter kill web that enables long-range and precise targeting of our forward-deployed forces. Intelligence suggests Russia may intend to put a nuclear weapon into orbit, threatening devastating consequences for the world and for the global economy.
A nuclear detonation in space would be catastrophic worldwide for everyone involved. We're talking allies, partners, commercial adversaries.
The initial radiation burst would render nearby satellites ineffective and useless. Electromagnetic pulse would have initial and lasting impacts as well, based off of the radiation impacts.
Space technology underpins our society in unseen ways and has become an indispensable engine of economic value.
Space enables things such as communications, transportation, navigation, agriculture, energy distribution. All these things are enabled by space.
Collectively, these space-enabled activities translate to hundreds of billions of dollars for the U.S. and global economies.
How does Amazon get packages to your house? How do you have delivery meal services? Actually even enabling financial transaction.
Those same capabilities we enjoy today can be used against us, or they could be unavailable.
The modern U.S. military has been designed around assured access to space capabilities.
Space is built in and baked into every plan that the Joint Force has. We're a critical component offering the ability to enhance the senses, whether that's seeing, hearing, talking. We're a big part of all of that. And so anytime a joint operation goes out, space is relied to be there.
2, 1.
In an age when space is more congested, contested, and critical than ever before, we face new requirements, new expectations, and new threats. We must adapt or risk ceding our strategic advantage to those who intend us harm.
Longitude east 035 decimal.
Recognizing that new things have to continue to change and develop is a critical piece of what we do. How do we plan for missions? How do we execute missions? And how do we offer additional capabilities in unique ways that we haven't done in the past?
The Space Force is responsible for organizing, training, and equipping critical space capabilities. But it's also responsible for conducting warfighting operations as an integrated part of the Joint Force.
Red. Wombat, service to 3K.
We secure our nation's interest in, from, and to space. That's our mission. This simple phrase, in, from, and to, captures the three core functions we were created to provide. First, space control, the in-space function.
When space became a warfighting domain, we needed to treat it like all the other domains, air, land, sea. We need to be able to gain and maintain domain superiority, which for space means two things. One, that we're able to preserve freedom of action for our forces, and two, to deny that freedom of action to our adversaries. And for the Space Force in particular, that means two things. First of all, we need to protect the capabilities that we have in space, the things that provide the enabling services for the Joint Force and for the Combined Force writ large. But secondly, and this is the really new mission, we need to be able to defeat adversary space power that could target our forces on the ground. In particular, we're thinking about the Chinese kill web, this interconnected sensing and targeting network that extends their reach and their precision of strike. If we're not able to defeat that, then we're putting our forces at risk.
That means we must be able to assure continued use of our satellites and deny our adversaries the use of theirs at times and places of our choosing. We accomplish this through three dedicated mission areas: orbital warfare, electromagnetic warfare, cyberspace warfare, preventing our adversaries from using the space and counterspace systems that hold us at risk while protecting friendly systems from attack. Second is global mission operations.
Think of it as the from aspect from space. I was thinking about this, the terrestrial support. So from space down to the ground users, what are we providing them? And that could be a range from SATCOM to GPS, missile warning, battle space awareness, all those functions that we're actually providing out to everybody on the ground.
Space has never been more critical to the security of our nation, and the success or failure of the Joint Force depends heavily upon the capabilities we present.
So we have our precision targeting using GPS. We can use these to accurately pinpoint where we want to strike and then strike within meters, even sometimes feet of where we want to be. We also have our military satellite communication that all branches can use to talk to whoever they need to talk to. So if the Navy needs to talk to maybe a nuclear sub, they can use satellite communication in that case.
Subcom report.
Overhead, we have our missile defense as well. So in satellites, they can detect launches of missiles using their heat signatures, using their infrared. That can be given to any branch that needs it. So whoever is on the ground, deployed, downrange, can use this information to know when a missile is coming.
Early missile warning is essential for saving American lives, and it provides a protection that most Americans probably don't even realize is there. However, If they were aware of the risk, they would surely be appreciative of the protection the Space Force provides.
Finally, Guardians secure our nation's interests to the space domain.
Space access is about launching our assets into space. Being able to achieve that access in various orbits is highly critical to our success.
Space superiority starts with getting to space. If we're unable to do that, then we can't provide those critical capabilities to the everyday user or to the warfighters downrange.
We have 3 mission areas that support this function. Satellite control, enabling telemetry, tracking, and commanding mission control through the infrastructure, networks, equipment, and connectivity that allows us to communicate with our satellites. Spacelift, the delivery of spacecraft and other payloads to and from space. And range control, providing safe and secure ranges for space launch operations. Underpinning these core functions are cross-cutting activities we refer to as enterprise functions, because without them, our enterprise would falter. The most notable include intelligence and space domain awareness, the foundation of all we do.
Go space vehicle 4-2.
Space domain awareness is the ability to use sensors to look up on orbit and identify objects, track where they're going, track where they came from, predict and avoid potential collisions, and just have a general awareness of what's going on up there.
The men and women who execute these functions every day are known as Guardians. It's a reference to our Air Force Space Command heritage, whose motto was, Guardians of the High Frontier.
We are the first line of defense when it comes to anything space-related, which is where war is going to take place, and we need Guardians to defend that space.
Of all warfighters, Guardians are uniquely and specifically trained, educated, and experienced in warfighting activities in, from, and to the space domain.
The 4 core values of the Space Force: 1, we have character. You have to have the right moral and ethical character to be able to be a good Guardian. Next, we have connection. We have to make these connections not only within our Space Force or within our unit, but with other branches too, so they know what we can offer. We have to have the courage to make the right decisions and do things that might be out of the box and unnormal. Last, we have commitment. You need to be committed to your mission and your skill set and really hone your skills and ensure that you are developing your mission set the best you can.
By design, the Space Force is lean and agile.
The Space Force is 10% of the size of the next smallest military branch. We were specifically shaped in this way to be agile and fast.
Our members are laser focused on 5 professional disciplines.
3 are operational. There's space operations, controlling satellites. There's intelligence, which means understanding and making use of data to inform our operations. There's cyberspace operations, which means commanding and controlling effects through cyberspace, which is how we generally command our satellites. And then there's 2 force modernization disciplines. There's engineering, which is how we design, develop, and deliver capability, and program management, which is acquisition of that capability, working hand in hand with engineering to speed those effects to the warfighter.
The Space Force is headquartered with its sister services at the Pentagon and has over 50 operating locations in the US and around the globe. Reporting to the headquarters are field commands.
So our field comms sit 1 tier below the headquarters Space Force. So they are charged with training, equipping, and resources our Guardians to be able to do the missions that are asked upon them by the joint fighter and by the Space Force as a whole.
Deltas, which support our field comms through specialized operations focused on specific mission areas.
Deltas kind of group up a big amount of work. So maybe we have MilSatCom in one delta or PNT in one delta, things like that.
And squadrons, tasked with specific mission sets and activities. Space Operations Command is charged with generating and presenting combat-ready intelligence, cyber, and space forces to the combatant commands. Space Systems Command acquires, develops, delivers, and fields dominant, integrated, and resilient warfighting space capabilities. SSC also operates 2 spaceports, ensuring the safe and secure delivery of payloads to orbit for military, commercial, and civil missions alike. Space Training and Readiness Command prepares combat-ready Guardians to fight and win in contested, degraded, and operationally limited environments. STARCOM accomplishes this through development, collection, and execution of training and education programs, threat-informed test and training systems, and realistic threat presentation for advanced training. Like our sister services, the Space Force must prepare and present forces and personnel to every combatant command. We'll do this through our service components, the building blocks of the Joint Force.
For space power to be effective, it needs to be integrated into our joint force, which means into our combatant commands. So if we're going to present space forces for combatant commanders to direct, we need to have a touch point that connects the combatant commander with the service forces that we provide. That's what the service component is.
The Space Force has brought a level of clarity and focus to operations in, from, and to space that the Department of Defense didn't have before.
Mission: rendezvous with a flight of strategic bombers.
While Air Force Space Command is the history and the legacy of the Space Force, as a separate military service, it's our job to contest and control the domain, to achieve space superiority.
And that's something the Space Force is doing as we execute warfighter ethos and a warfighter mentality. How are we bringing our space capability to the fight?
Our establishment isn't yet complete. We're still maturing into our role as a discrete warfighting service.
GPS vehicle 4-2.
Go space vehicle 4-2.
Despite all we have accomplished, despite our vast array of capabilities, and despite the dedication of our Guardians, the transformation we require is daunting.
As the Space Force mission grows, so does the responsibilities of all of us, and we need to grow with them to meet the challenges today as well as the challenges tomorrow.
We have to, again, continue executing all of those legacy missions, which we can't stop doing because the Joint Force is relying on those.
We've put a lot of the critical foundation in, we put in the groundwork, but the work is going to be ongoing, and it's on Guardians to get us there.
We must transform from an organization that takes advantage of a benign domain into a warfighting organization. One that has the equipment, training, and doctrine to contest the domain and provide critical effects in the face of a determined adversary. This critical transformation requires new resourcing levels.
We are asking our young Guardians to do incredibly challenging things, and we owe it to them, we owe it to the service, we owe it to the country to provide them with the skills that will make them successful.
Without space superiority, we cannot deter conflict. Without it, we cannot provide vital effects. Without it, we cannot protect the Joint Force. Until we have built the infrastructure needed to achieve it, the Space Force is a work in progress.
Understanding that a threat is growing, right, but there's a set of Guardians who are willing to meet that threat and try and rise to it, we need help and support from all those around us to be able to achieve that mission.
There should be no doubt that space is of great importance to our nation's defense. There are no service or national boundaries in the orbits above. It's important not just to the Space Force, but to all branches of our armed services and our very way of life. Standing guard both night and day, the Guardians of the United States Space Force secure our nation's interests in, from, and to space. Semper Supra.